Who do we think is like the what could have been? Like, who is the head of that list? Like, what could have been Sean O'Hare?
This guy O'Hare, could be, he had the look, the size, 6'4", 275.
Can you name someone who had the look and you thought was going to be a big star but flopped?
The first name that comes to my mind would be Sean O'Hare. He was very athletic. He could do moves that wrestlers his size traditionally can't do.
I'm not telling you anything that you don't already know.
These videos are not for children. If you are a children, then piss off.
If you play your cards right, you might even learn a few things.
I hate this channel.
Hey there, I'm the SIJW Infuso, and I was looking back at my backlog of videos, making minor edits to past videos to put them back up because they were either demonetized or just taken off the platform altogether, when it came to my realization that a lot of my videos I've made in the past, when I first started out with the SIJW series are, how do I put this lightly, entirely unwatchable. I mean, my audio leveling sucked, the songs were always louder than my actual narration, the clips that I used were always louder than the music and myself, and really, what was with that epilepsy-inducing background static I used? What prompted me to make that decision?
I don't know!
Anyway, my point is, I can do better, and I will do better. So if you see a couple of topics on this channel suddenly reappear, now you know why. And that's why this video is about someone I've talked about previously on this channel, the greatest wrestler you've never known, Sean O'Hare. What's truly sad is that unless you're a diehard wrestling mark, or you just so happen to be watching SmackDown for the brief period of time in the early 2000s, you probably wouldn't even know that name. Sean O'Hare isn't a guy who has an incredible legacy or an unforgettable career. The biggest tragedy here is that his career is probably all too forgettable, and it really shouldn't have been. If I was to ask Siri to define a missed opportunity, it would give me the definition to the term missed opportunity, and then supply me with a link to Sean O'Hare's 2003 run as an example. He was never really super relevant to the product, which means he's at the perfect relevance for this channel because I don't even make the top 100 wrestling channels. Because like Sean O'Hare, I too get overlooked in the large scheme of things, and you know what? I'm not jealous. I'm not jealous. It's fine. It's fine. If people think Grim is a better YouTuber than me, then that's okay. That's okay. I'm not mad. I just wish people were smarter. First of all, let me tell you why Sean O'Hare was the real total package. Sorry, OSW fans, Lex had nothing on this guy. This is all opinion-based, of course, so try not to send Jim Cornette after me after this. A wrestler should excel in at least two of the three following: a look, in-ring work, and mic skills. Look. Are you kidding me? This is a big-ass dude. He's tall, he's in shape, and he looks like he smells like Axe body spray at all times. This dude looks like Flash Thompson from Spider-Man 1's meaner older brother. He looks like a douchebag with a short temper and an attitude problem. This may sound like I'm insulting the man, but I assure you, these are all positives in this industry. The guy looked like he could reasonably be threatening. It would be easy to see someone being intimidated by somebody his size, and with his face. Later on, he'd switch things up and start looking like this, which again is also a look. He looks like Chris Angel's bodyguard. He looks like a character from a live-action Castlevania movie that I've never seen. The guy looks like a modern James Bond villain. Tell me you couldn't see this man in a turtleneck slowly stroking a cat as he spun around in a chair, because I could. This guy looks like he could have been the antagonist in Zoolander 3. Okay, now this is a stretch, and bear with me here, but if you really try to take in what I'm saying, I think you'll come to agree. The guy looks like Cruella de Vil's evil stepson. I don't know how, because I don't think Cruella de Vil ever had an evil stepson, but if she was to have one, this is what I think he would look like. In-ring work. Now, just by showing you a picture of this guy, you probably already have an idea of what kind of style he'd work. You know, probably the big guy, heavy punches, big boots, Test Diesel special, right?
Wrong!
Sean O'Haire would obviously dominate in his matches and showcase what a powerhouse he could be, but he'd just as soon glide through the air with the greatest of ease. The man defied wrestling logic and big man physics. The guy was a complete athlete. Senton bombs, spinning back kicks, and just all through the match. He was the heavyweight cruiserweight and the biggest little man the industry has ever seen. Sean O'Haire was an entertaining dude. And when he was given the gimmick of the devil's advocate, the man took the ball and ran with it. He spoke with conviction, and everything he said and did was entirely believable. He didn't come across as somebody playing a part, but instead the type of person who would inspire these parts for other people to play. Does that make sense?
Nope.
I could go on, especially in this subject, but I'll cut it short and just say the guy was thoroughly entertaining. O'Haire got his start in WCW at the WCW Power Plant, where he was trained to be an upcoming prospect for the company. He'd eventually show up on Nitros and Thunders as a part of the Natural Born Thriller stable. He was one of several no-name newcomers who were looking to make an impact and make their names known at the expense of the older, more established stars. So think the Nexus if they sucked harder than the actual Nexus did. The faction lacked chemistry, lacked purpose, lacked direction, and in typical WCW faction, they were given zero guidance. Green from inexperience, they were fed to the Sharks, and despite being given rafts in the form of multiple WCW tag title runs, they were still jobbed out and eaten alive. Sean would team with Chuck Palumbo, and the team would be picked up by the WWF after the WCW buyout. They'd enter the company still billed as the WCW Tag Team Champions, attacking the Hardy Boys and eventually finding themselves in a feud with the APA. They would wind up getting a win over the Hardy Boys, but they'd soon after lose their WCW titles to the Brothers of Destruction, The Undertaker and Kane. And that same month the team would silently disband following a loss to the Holly Cousins. O'Haire was sent back down to OVW for additional training, before re-debuting with the company in January of 2003. Vignettes began airing depicting the spider-webbed hitman as the previously mentioned Devil's Advocate gimmick. Think cult leader Bray Wyatt if what he said was a bit more coherent. Everything he started to say was stated plainly as a matter of fact. There was no real investment from him. It didn't seem like he had anything to gain. He was just very frank about everything. He wasn't speaking as somebody who had something to gain from sharing this information. Hell, he even said in promos himself,
I'm not telling you anything that you don't already know.
Along with a new persona came a new look, which included a long black trench coat, the Cowardly Lion's mane, and a seemingly endless amount of spider tattoos. Oh yeah, that Spider-Man joke from before? It's all coming together now. It's all coming together now. This new character suited O'Haire well, as he was able to sink his teeth into the gimmick and completely reinvent himself, which was probably a shock for anyone who had been watching him for the last couple years, being that they probably only saw him do flips and raise his arms. He played his new part well, coming off as a charismatic, intellectual, well-spoken, articulate smooth talker, who could serve as the proverbial snake to convincing the SmackDown and Velocity rosters to bite the apple. He'd talk and urge locker room and audience members alike to break the law, commit adultery, and not pay taxes, amongst various other things. When he finally made an appearance live on the show, it was backstage, persuading and inspiring others to, well, usually get naked. I mean, Brian Kendrick streaked, Dawn Marie flashed the crowd. I'm just thankful Midian was nowhere near the building. And just by these promos, I was instantly a fan as a kid. I remember getting SmackDown Here Comes the Cane when I was younger, and on a roster that had Goldberg, Stone Cold, The Rock, Chris Jericho, Triple H, The Undertaker, Brock Lesnar, John Cena, Randy Orton, Shawn Michaels, and Roddy Piper, just to name a few. I found myself playing a lot as Sean O'Haire. Unfortunately, much like booking, I also didn't do this man any justice. And neither did culturally inappropriate Pedro, who lost match after match with this guy in a playthrough. That's what you're seeing right now. That's not my failure, it's his. O'Haire was initially given a pretty solid push, re-debuting with a winning streak that was never officially ended, if I recall. And it was a streak which saw him go through the likes of Chris Benoit, Eddie Guerrero, and Hulk Hogan, amongst many others. Unfortunately, the Devil's Advocate gimmick, which should have made the man a star, was silently dropped in favor of seeing him work as Roddy Piper's henchman, which was still a big spot for someone this new to the business, but was definitely still a downgrade from what could have been. O'Haire would serve as Roddy Piper's muscle, I guess replacing Randy Orton's dad, during Piper's feud with a masked Hulk Hogan, and wow, 2003 was a time to be alive. It's strange, SmackDown was actually great around this time period, but 2003 SmackDown seems a lot less like an actual time period in wrestling, and much more like a fever dream. It's like watching 2K Universe mode on autoplay. Everything's just, it's completely random. Their time together was short-lived, and shortly after they began teaming, both men were released from the company for different reasons. And that's unfortunately the end of O'Haire's time in the spotlight. I can't honestly say he had any career-defining moments, no matches for us to look back on in awe, no feuds that could really be enjoyed. All that's for display is what looked to be unlimited potential and untapped talent. O'Haire could talk, he could walk, and he was someone who demanded to be seen. It's hard not to look back and think of what could have been. In my opinion, Sean O'Haire was one of the most underutilized wrestlers the company had ever seen. He may not go down in the WWE Hall of Fame, but let it be known, he's at least the second inductee in the SIJW Hall of Fame.
You want to, you need to. Do it for you.
When was the last time you did something for you?
Well, let me tell you something, brother. You're watching the Social Injustice Warrior V Infuso's channel, dude. So if you like the words that came out of his mouth hole, and you too want to become a V-tard, don't forget to like and subscribe, and click that little bell icon to get updates and notifications. Ooh, tell him what up, Mach. Ooh, yeah. Follow the man on Twitter, yeah, because we all know it's not stalking if it's on the internet, yeah. Join the madness by joining the Discord, and if you have a moment of time and a free $1 to spare, head over to the SIJW's Patreon, dig it, where you can request videos, get exclusive videos, and early access to content, yeah. Or go down to PayPal, where you can buy the shirts, brother. But most importantly, just remember, if you're not tuning in, then you're missing out.